As we approach the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, US President Joe Biden has confirmed his intention to visit Northern Ireland and the Republic to mark the occasion. For more on this, I'm joined now by Ireland editor with the Irish Independent, Fionn Sheahan, by the Lascohirla for the Ballina Municipal District, Michael Loftus, and by Alison Morris, columnist with the Belfast Telegraph and commentator specialising in politics and security. You're all very welcome. Fionn, we'll start with you first, although his start for the visit might well be in Belfast, but a big security operation will have to be undertaken, and it's probably already happening.
Yeah, if you're living in Ballina, Dundalk or Castleknock, and you see a half dozen fellas going around in trench coats, wearing dark sunglasses and having earpieces in their ears, you know that you're on the itinerary. The Secret Service and the US Embassy tend to kick into action quite some months in advance. There are all sorts of plans and preparations put in place, particularly around the security and logistics of such a trip. Just relating back to 2011, when President Obama visited here, one of the first engagements he had that day was in Farmley House in the Phoenix Park. During that meeting with Enda Kenny, Michelle Obama was being brought on a tour of the gardens to see Irish sculpture and so on and so forth. And an Irish official told me at the time that 6 weeks ahead of that meeting, he was talking to a US official who described themselves as the second lead on the First Lady's tour of the Garden of Farmley. So even something which would appear to us to be fairly routine, they tend to have it planned down into minuscule detail. So you will have all sorts of things such as security being beefed up around these areas. You will also see things like manhole covers being checked out and soldered shut if the president is due to pass that way. Not clear yet. Obviously, the advantage that he has, that he is a helicopter, so he can probably bypass a lot of motorways and so on and so forth. But you can expect significant security operations in the exact locations that he visits. And at the moment, we expect that will be very definitely Mayo, Louth and Dublin.
Okay, you'd expect a visit to the Oris anyway, maybe plant a tree or whatever, the kind of things they do. Another meeting in Farmley perhaps, rather than government buildings, because you can chopper into Farmley, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you have the advantage of the Phoenix Park that you have Oris and Uachtaráin, the US ambassador's residence and Farmley House. They're all neighbours, effectively, of each other there. Three big houses up the Castleknock, and it's very easy to seal that off and pack in a number of engagements there. But this is not going to be like the Obama visit at all, which was, was described by somebody at the time as, he was the perfect visitor. He arrived on time and he left early. On that occasion, you'll recall that Obama was only on the ground for the best part of a day. They left early because they had another appointment in Germany, and there were reports coming out of a certain ash cloud emerging from Iceland at that time, so they were nervous that they wouldn't be able to travel on, so they actually left early. They were booked in to stay on that occasion in the Marion Hotel, which is across the road from government buildings, so it was easy to seal off that area of the city. In President Biden's case, if he's going to be here for 5 days, you're talking about 3 to 4 overnights. Potential there for Mayo, for example, in the past. There is now a presidential suite in Ashford Castle called the Ronald Reagan suite, because that's where he stayed.
Might feel a bit uncomfortable. Might feel a bit uncomfortable sleeping in the Republican Ronald Reagan suite.
There might have to be a separate suite named after Joe Biden on this occasion. So it won't be the first time that a president of the United States stays in the county of Mayo. Obviously, the logistics will be in place for that. We don't have exact dates yet. We know that he won't be here, for example, around the exact anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. We expect either the middle to the end of April, and he will incorporate obviously that trip to Northern Ireland to apply pressure there in terms of getting the executive and the assembly back up and running.
Okay, so they're not expecting the executive to be up and running in advance of his visit, and I'll talk to Alison about that in a moment. Finally, if you're on expectation of some sort of a set piece, I remember introducing Bill Clinton to the crowds in College Green, which was a big occasion. Obama did a set piece there as well. Do you think Joe Biden will do something similar, or is maybe an address to the joint houses of the Oireachtas on the cards?
Yeah, so you'll recall Clinton also did an address in Dundalk, which was fabulous. We're nothing on that yet, and there are, if you're monitoring the US media, there are consistent concerns expressed about Joe Biden's health. So we're going to have to wait and see what kind of big set pieces are there like that, or are they going to be kind of more intimate occasions for him? It's not that he hasn't visited here before. He's been here in the past. So it's not as if he's visiting places he's never been before, but he very much wanted to come back here as the US president. So you would expect that on the checklist to be confirmed would be things like a general address to a large crowd, potentially an address to the Dáil, very definitely an address to the Assembly in Northern Ireland. That seems to have been the one aspect of this trip that has cast a doubt and a shadow over it, whether it would be appropriate for him to visit Belfast, given that the Assembly and the Executive are not up and running. But clearly he's taken the decision that he is going to come, and that a key component of the visit will be talking about the peace and stability that the Good Friday Agreement has brought about, and therefore the importance of getting the institutions back up and running.
All right, Fionn Sheehan, Ireland editor with the Irish Independent. Thank you. Alison Morris has been listening to this, columnist with the Belfast Telegraph. Alison, what's the buzz in Belfast about all of this?
Well, I mean, there's been rumours for quite some time that Biden was going to arrive on the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, and that's next month. So we have been speculating for that for a while. I think that the way it was announced came as a bit of a surprise. We had expected there to be a big St. Patrick's Day announcement in the White House, and not to sort of trickle out in a press conference when he was along with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. But hard news gets out as hard gets out. So as I was already said there, the security operation will be huge, a joint operation between the PSNI and obviously the American Secret Service. There is a security threat in Northern Ireland, which probably doesn't have to be considered when he crosses the border. But I mean, I suppose the biggest threat here is from dissident Republicans. Biden is a friend to Ireland. He wouldn't be someone who would be on their target list. But don't be surprised if some of those groups try and use the added global publicity that's on Northern Ireland to carry out attacks, and maybe believe that they'll get more attention or more propaganda value for them, just because of the fact that the world's media travels along with Biden everywhere he goes. So we are expecting, there's a big event at Queen's that was already planned to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. That's organised by the George Mitchell Institute of Queen's, and so I would expect that will be his big address during his visit to Northern Ireland.
Now, the PSNI are well used to protecting people and putting security in place. Most recently, of course, Rishi Sunak, but he kept himself kind of out of the way a bit.
He does. He usually stays in the Culloden, which is an extremely fancy hotel on the outskirts of Belfast, but it's easy. It's the sort of one way in, one way out type of a hotel, and it's the police prefer dignitaries to stay there because they find it easier to guard, I suppose, in other maybe city centre locations or anywhere like that. I don't know how long he'll stay. I think the majority of his sort of overnights parts of this visit will be when he crosses the border and is in the south. The event at Queen's, I mean, I remember very well attending the 20th anniversary event at Queen's, and Clinton came along, and there was a lot of security around Clinton still, as you can imagine. But there was no issues whatsoever. Queens are well used to putting on these kind of big events with huge names that attend them, and so they should be well underway. But I did notice last week that the press accreditation was sent out for that, and it was a sort of very stringent registration process, maybe a little bit more stringent than those things would usually be. So already they'd clearly got a heads up that they needed to make sure that they'd vetted everyone who was invited to that event. So it'll be interesting to hear what he says, because, as you know, we have no assembly up and running. There's not going to be an assembly up and running by the anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement, and probably quite purposely the DUP. Some of those members of the DUP were never in favour of the Good Friday Agreement anyway. They didn't sign up until St Andrews. They don't want to be seen to prop up anything that's going to, give publicity value to Sinn Féin or their political rivals. So they're likely to say they're still considering the Windsor framework and drag that out at least until after that commemoration, but that anniversary. But don't believe that we won't see DUP members show up to meet Biden. I think that they won't want to miss that opportunity either.
Okay, they like the celebrity dust to fall on their shoulders, or celebrity dandruff, who knows. Anyway, Alison, thank you very much. We'll obviously hear more about the arrangements as the time approaches. Now, Michael Loftus, last Cathaoirleach for the Ballina Municipal District, has been listening to this. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. How are you?
I'm very well. You are no stranger to Joe Biden. You've met him before.
That's correct. We were very fortunate in Ballina to warmly welcome Joe to Ballina in 2016 when he was Vice President. And the warm welcome he got that morning and that day was unbelievable. I laugh with interest when I hear about all the security that you're talking about, that barriers and all sorts of things being put up. In Ballina, we were very fortunate to not to have to worry about that, because of the great stewarding of the Garda Síochána in Mayo. Joe actually was the one who in the end went into the crowds, was taking selfies with all the different people, goes over and back. And initially he was supposed to be in the town for maybe an hour or two. He ended up, I think, about 4 hours later leaving Ballina. But the welcome that he got was tremendous at the time. It was warm, caring, and he felt like he was at home. And that was the main thing that we're hoping that we'll replicate again.
Yeah, it might be a bit different when he's President of the United States.
It may be, but I can tell you the security and the Secret Service were all over the place that time as well, but they themselves couldn't get over the warmth of the reception of the people. And, that was the great thing about it. It was genuinely warm, a welcome for him. Now, he did come in 2019 on a private visit to actually turn the sod in the Mayo Roscommon Hospice in Castlebar. He had no Secret Service. He just came himself privately and was treated royally by all the people that he met at the time.
Now, you might help us trace back, if you know, Joe Biden's Irish roots, because it's not on the Biden side, it's on the Blewett family.
That's correct. Now, again, that goes back to the 1800s, where his relations left Ballina. And that's one of the great connections that we have. In fairness to the Blewett family, they've been great in keeping that connection going. And I want to congratulate them, because they every year in recent years have been going to the White House to St. Paddy's Day parade, continuing the good relationship that they have with Joe and he with them. We also have a connection with Scranton. His hometown of Scranton, Ballina, has been twinned with Scranton since 1990. So we were very progressive there. We were looking forward to, once Joe was becoming president and vice president, we were thinking ahead, and that's how we were twinning with Scranton in 1990.
Yeah, just the history. Patrick Blewett left in 1850 in the autumn to settle in America. Came back the following year to pick up his parents, Edward and Mary, and his siblings, because he was obviously the oldest. They settled in Scranton, as you mentioned. He became a mining inspector, often working in South America, so a very adventurous man. Then Patrick had a son, Edward F. Blewett, who was born in New Orleans in 1859. And so it goes right up to the present day. So the antecedents are absolutely crystal clear.
That's correct. And in fairness to the family here, they really are, they're really keep that connection going, to be fair to them. And, you have to say thank you to Joe, because it could be easily that you would forget your relations. But no, he is very, very, very much into his connection.
And Biden's great-great-grandfather on the other side was an Owen Finnegan. And through Owen Finnegan, he's related to Rob Carney and his brother Dave.
There you go. Again, I didn't know that connection, but there you go. So a pity he's not here for the game on Saturday to promote the...
Well, I'm not sure he's into rugby, probably more American football. But anyway, a big warm welcome will be on the mat in Ballina when Joe Biden visits, which he inevitably will. But I suspect you'll be welding down the potholes, or the manholes, filling the potholes and welding the manholes.
Of course, we also have our Mary Robinson Centre that I don't know whether it be ready for opening, but it would be a great occasion if Joe was to be there to actually do the official opening. Of course, we have our famous mural that we put up in Ballina of Joe. So we're looking forward to him to see that mural of himself. And the other famous man we had would be Jack Charlton. So they're the two famous people that we have murals in Ballina.
Some of the text coming in, no doubt there will be protests. Probably they protest, about aspects of American foreign policy all the time. This one from Peter: fifth cousin to Joe Biden rubbish has started. Can we avoid the rubbish we subjected Obama to and keep the Darby O'Gill stuff for the Oscars? Ooh, that's from Peter. Very cynical. Don't forget, Joe Biden himself embraces his Irishness probably much more than any American presidents since John F. Kennedy. Absolutely embraces his Irishness and is proud of it, and is very involved in Irish affairs, even at a time when it was not necessarily popular or profitable to do so. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Michael Loftus, the last Cathaoirleach for the Ballina Municipal District.